Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today we are going to be doing another Halloween creature. Today I'm going to be doing a hybrid of a spider and a bat. I thought this would be really fun and a cool way of just doing a little bit of a twist to Halloween this year because I wanted to try and do a bunch of different things that I haven't done, and it's really easy to just kind of do the same werewolf spider bat kind of combo each year, and I just wanted to try something different this year. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so let's start on our clay first for our face. So with this piece, I knew I wanted to have the multiple eyes of the spider, but I wanted to add a little bit more bat features to the face, and that was a little bit difficult, honestly. I wasn't sure how far to go. I know throwing in a more normal mammal type mouth was definitely one thing I could do, but I wasn't quite sure until I started on the face if I wanted to do a bat nose or if I wanted fangs or whatnot. So I was really not sure how I was going to do the face. I was just kind of picking one feature at a time and working on it until I liked how the face looked. So for the eyes, I'm just using some resin pieces that I casted ahead of time. I casted the main ones a little bit larger, and then the ones that are going more off to the side, I ended up casting as a tiny bit smaller and a little bit more oval. So I'm just placing these where I want them on the face, taking strips of clay to go around them. We're really not making eyelids, we're just kind of adding clay to kind of set the eyes into the face. Next, I started adding strips of clay to make the mouth. For this, again, I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to go, but after I placed the eyes, I realized I kind of want to make this look a little bit on the cuter side. So I started adjusting the features to be a little bit more cute and not so, like, scary. So I ended up not adding fangs, but honestly, adding some little fangs would have been really cute as well. So if I make another one, maybe I'll throw in some fangs next time. But where I was having the most trouble with this face was adding the nose and trying to make it look like a bat nose, but not make the face look weird. I think I did pretty good. I tried to make it a little bit more smaller, that way you kind of focused a bit more on the eyes because I really liked how they looked, and I just kept messing around with it until I ended up liking it. Anyways, once we're done sculpting the face, I'm going to put this in the oven for probably about 45 minutes at 275 Fahrenheit. And then once it's out of the oven, we can start painting it along with some other resin pieces that we're going to use for the feet. Now for painting the face, I'm going to leave it pretty simple and mainly just work on covering everything up and adding detail to probably the mouth and the nose. So I'm going to be painting some black around the eyes that I have, trying my best to keep the paint off of the resin so I don't have to clean them. And then I'm just going to go over the rest of the face with a gray, and then I'm going to start adding color to the nose. I want it to kind of be a different color, so I'm going to go with more of a reddish pink for the nose. I'm going to start off a little bit darker and just kind of add a little bit of highlights here and there. And then once I'm done painting the face, we're going to move on to painting some claws to go at the end of our feet, which are also going to be our wings. So these are from a mold that I made for a different project to make posable feet, and I thought they would work really well to go at the end of our feet for our spider bat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be painting them a solid color. I'm not going to do anything super complicated with them. And then once all of my clay and resin pieces are painted, I'm going to let everything dry, and then I'm going to resin over any of the paintwork that isn't going to get covered with something like fur fabric or other things that I'm going to glue on. Okay, so let's start on our sewing. We have quite a bit to actually do. So this is the pattern that I'm going to start with. I will point out that I did make a few alterations later on, but I'll make sure to point that out when I do those alterations. But I have a basic shape for the body, and then for our leg wings, I have a pattern for smaller ones and larger ones. So because we have so many leg wings to work on, I think we're going to start on that first. So I have the wing portion of our leg wings already cut out and pinned together, and we're just going to start sewing these together. We're going to leave the base of this open, that way we can flip it right side out. So I'm just going to sew all 8 of these with my sewing machine, flip them right side out, and then we're going to do a little bit of sewing so we can have a little bit of separation and make it look like there's little finger portions in the wings. And then once we have all of our wing portions done, we're going to start adding the leg portion to our leg wings. So basically for this, these are going to be strips of fur fabric, and I'm going to be sewing one on each side of the top portion of our wing. And then once we have our wings sewn together, we're then going to start working on adding them to some wires and making our wire frame. So we're going to need those claws now. So with the claws, I ended up drilling a tiny hole in the back of it. That way we can add it to a wire. So I'm just going to take a little bit of glue and I'm going to glue these onto the ends of some wires. So the wires that I have, each one is going to be 2 leg wings. We're just going to basically fold that wire in half, and we're going to start gluing and sewing our legs onto these wires. So I'm just going to take a little bit of glue, and I'm going to glue the fabric for the leg wing around the base of our claw, let that dry, and then I'm going to start sewing the rest of that closed around the wire. So we're going to do this to all 8 of them. Make sure that the smaller ones are on the same wire as the other smaller ones. That way you can have each one kind of mirroring each other on the wire frame. And then once we have all of our leg wings on their wires, we're then going to take all of those wires and we're going to combine them. So I'm going to take the base of them and I'm going to start wrapping everything together. As I'm doing this, you'll notice that I have a decent amount of extra wire. Some of this is going to go into the back end of the spider, and then I'm going to bend some of it forward so we can attach our head to some of the wires. Also, while I was working on this, I realized I wanted to add some little feeler legs to the very front of him, so I added some extra wires for that as well. So I'm going to add the head really quick. I'm just going to glue it in place on the wire that I'm going to use for the head, and then I'm going to make those little feeler legs so we can add those too. For these, I left them really simple. They're just going to be some little bent arms. They're not going to have claws at the end or anything. They're going to be just nice and fuzzy. So before we add these, I'm going to take part of the fabric for the body and I'm going to glue it to the bottom portion of our head. So I actually added a little bit of a cut, and this is where we're going to sew those legs in place. So I ran the wires for the tiny legs through that hole that I made, and then I glued the fabric around the bottom portion of the head. And then after that, I'm going to take the top portion of our spider bat's body and I'm going to glue it to the top portion of the head. So I'm just going to glue that around the very top portion, let that dry, and then we're going to start sewing the body closed and attaching the legs to it. So I'm just going to sew down the sides of the body, connecting it to the legs. So I'm sewing through the bases of the legs as I'm closing this up. Now at this point I realized I needed to make a big change because the pattern portion for the back end of our spider bat is just way too small. And so I ended up cutting that portion off of the fabric, and I made a new pattern that's going to have 4 sides. So basically there's going to be 4 sections that we're going to sew together to make this little bulbous butt at the end of our spider. And so I ended up sewing our little butt all together, stuffed it, and then I'm just going to attach it to the back end of our spider. Okay, so right now we have our body all done and we need to finish up the face. It's looking good, but right now it just looks like a spider with a nose, and I want to add a little bit more bat features to the face. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some ears. So I made a really simple pattern for this, and I ended up sewing some fabric together to make a left and right ear. So the inside of the ear I made kind of a darker red fabric, and then the outside is black. So I'm going to take a small piece of our fur fabric that the body is made out of, and I'm going to sew the ears together on this. So it's just connecting the very top portion, and then what we're going to do is we're going to glue these in place on the top of our head. So I'm going to get everything in place, I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of fur to the rest of the face so it kind of blends together a bit more. And then I'm going to take my fabric markers and just add a little bit of extra color to the body so it's not just black and gray. Okay guys, and here is my spider bat. I had so much fun with this piece. It was definitely different. I love his ears, even though I feel like they look a little odd for a spider, but I think that's just me. But yeah, I had a lot of fun combining a spider and a bat to make this little guy, and I'm going to have him in my Etsy shop, so if anyone wants to give him a home, have a little spooky companion, he will be in there, so check the links down below. I also have a bunch of links to a bunch of different art supplies that I like to use to make my art dolls. So if you're interested in making your own, or you just want to see what I'm using, check those links down below. Now these are affiliated links, so if you do buy anything through them, it does help support the channel. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!